ASEAN and beyond.
It will be a revision, and maybe for the younger ones, it could be some new knowledge. Just bear with me. So, being the head commissioner, coming up to 1 year appointment, so I have to familiarize myself with all these movements of engineers within ASEAN and within the world. To be fair with you, to be honest with you, it's been quite new. I haven't been doing this all my whole life. I'm a consultant engineer, and I bet a lot of us engineers actually are not really into this kind of knowledge. I know when talks in the Institution of Engineers in Malaysia are given, whenever we have a topic outside technical topics, there will be very few attendees. When we talk about dams, about sustainability of bamboo, everyone will come and listen. I think this is engineering. But we hope in the Institution of Engineers, we are calling corporate members now to come and talk to our engineers. The last one, I managed to get Tan Sri Rafidah Aziz, our former minister, lady minister, to come. And we are hoping to get the next celebrity, Tony Fernandez, to come and speak to engineers, just to rev up the engineering people into thinking something beyond just technical engineering. Okay. So I'll be talking background quickly on the, Asian Economic Community, the ASEAN formation in those days, historical. And then we'll talk about some international engineering organizations which are trying to recognize accreditation and competency, and perhaps share with you what are the challenges, current challenges, and some tips for Brunei, because I heard Brunei has got to go global. And you're looking at what? UK, yeah? Look at UK. So far away. I'm obliged to get you to look at ASEAN. Okay, next. Okay, we all know this. 1967, very quick. 10 countries now. It's just a quick flash. Yeah. Next. Nanti tak sempat. So it led towards the aim of our government to form the ASEAN Economic Community, and it was actually launched in December 2015 in Kuala Lumpur, at the ASEAN Summit in Kuala Lumpur. And one of the pillars, if you can see here, is the free flow of services and skilled labor. Skilled labor, that's our interest today, okay? And plus the rest, integration. Next, quick one, next. Why ASEAN? Why ASEAN? Nice, yeah. These are the points to look at why we should consider ASEAN. We look at the ASEAN population. We are the third largest in the world after China and India, and even more than the EU or the US. We got big population. Our population is young. Demographically, we are young. We have more young people compared to the developed countries. Although there's disparity. Of course, Singapore has got issues about not enough young people because of their birth policy before. So we've got more than 50% below 30 years old, very productive. And third largest in Asia, of course, yeah, China and Japan. And in the world, the trade within the ASEAN is number 7. It's a big volume, plenty of things going on there. And that's our capital. Next stage, I will share more information. Thanks. Okay. You look at the intra-ASEAN, what do you call this? FDI, just within ASEAN countries, into ASEAN countries. EU is the biggest investor. So, no, sorry, this is within ASEAN. So within ASEAN, we have neighboring countries investing in each other. So EU is the biggest that's within ASEAN, but within ASEAN itself, the partners, we're working very well within ourselves. Are increasing all the time. And within trade, this is FDI. Even with the trading within ASEAN itself, also we're doing a lot of business with ourselves within ASEAN group. So there's some government. So where do we engineers come in? And of course the volume is there. Okay, next. a bit of history here. I wish I can see the computer. I can't really see the slide very well from here. Ada portable mic tak mungkin? So maybe I look at the tarik dulu ya. Sorry because tak hafal semua. Okay. So I'm going to share here. The slides will be available. Some facts there. With the free trade since '67 when we formed, we had all sorts of goods. It was trading of goods earlier on until 1995, in line with the world GATT and GATS, and we'll see later. We had an AFAS agreement, which is the ASEAN agreement on services. And we were also looking at the formation of the ASEAN community, which was launched, as mentioned earlier. So now I'm going to focus on AFAS. Yeah. Next. Oh, all right. Focus AFAS. Okay, the community thing, but you can download this if you like. Target by 2025. You know, these are some of the aims. We want ASEAN to be a community. Maybe let's hope they don't have Brexit or exit later on after we form a community. But we're doing well. We've got our 10 countries working together. You can download this, and you have time. You can read through the whole book there. Next, yeah. Okay, this is part the aim. As usual, you know, single goods market, removing barriers. These are quite easy to do in that sense. Skills mobility, which what we're looking at. So the AFAS 1995, eight MRAs were signed. One of them engineering services, and the rest nursing, surveying, medical, dental, and so on. So we're looking at engineering services in 1995. Next, yeah. Signed 1995. Well, in the agreement, we were in line with the World Trade Organization's agreement on trade and services, cross-border trade and services, where it's been recognized the 4 modes. Some people may be familiar with this. I think Haji Mazin is sleeping now. He's been looking at this for a long time and coming to the ASEAN thing. But I just have to share with some of the younger ones. 4 modes. This has been happening, no problem. Cross-border, you know, you supply your services, drawings, all without having to be present there. And consumption abroad. You actually open a company in another country. And finally, physically, the person can actually go and work in that country physically. This is the one that's challenging now because of the different standards, different what we call accreditations of degrees and qualifications, and what we call the other term they like to use now is competency. Accreditation and competency, 2 words that come nowadays on international recognition. Okay, next. So it was signed in 1995, but the engineering services came 10 years later. Dr. Mohsin was there maybe at the time, or maybe you. That's why it's a lot of guys were actually more exposed than me. I was, you know, I came into the engineering institution at IEM about 10 years ago. So prior to that, I was so busy trying to earn a living. And since I became appointed to be head commissioner, by convention, the head commissioner comes from Malaysia from Institution of Engineers, because the secretariat is parked in the Institution of Engineers. We have our meeting every 2 months, where we have reports coming in from various national monitoring committees of the ASEAN countries, but we try to pick up from there. So you can see it's difficult to move actually. Basically, it's financial constraints. So okay, but when this was signed in 2005, this what we call the MRA mutual recognition arrangement is facilitate mobility of engineering services professionals and to try and adopt some standards and qualifications. And this led to the formation of the ASEAN Chartered Professional Engineers Register. This is not the ASEAN Engineers Register. This is another what we call ACPE. So you got to remember these acronyms now. AER is ASEAN Engineers. ACPE, Chartered Professional Engineer. Basically, it means these are our government recognized movement when they sign the MRA. But our AER, ASEAN Engineers Register, has been there since we decided to form the AFIO, ASEAN Federation of Engineering Organization, has been there. And we actually are ahead of this agreement. Next slide, please. These are all the descriptions in the agreement. First, you are a professional engineer in your country. You have a professional regulatory authority, we shall see the list later, which will recognize you as a professional engineer. You can practice in your country. And then you subscribe to the ASEAN Chartered Professional Engineer Register, satisfying certain criterion. And when they have accepted your qualifications, you will be on the register. This register is maintained in your home country. Brunei ada kan? Ada ya. Maintained by MOD now with the APEX. Apa the APEX ya. Sorry, I read through it. I saw it. Yeah. And then if you wish to practice in a foreign country or rather within ASEAN, you submit a registration RFPE. So, you know, there will be Malaysians registered in Thailand, in Singapore, for that matter, and Bruneians, if they wish to export, they can register in Malaysia, Singapore, within the ASEAN country as a RFPE. But in the agreement, okay, this is the same one, Professional Regulatory Authority, which means the government body regulating the practice of engineering services. Quite interesting, this one. So RFPE, you have to register as an RFPE in that country where the engineer wish to work, but you have, this is a clause they put in the agreement, in collaboration with one professional engineer of the host country. Unfortunately, they put this clause in. You're not free yet, you have to work with a local engineer. I must share with you, this one's not so active in that sense. Summit, where all the in KL, last week in KL, you were represented by Engineer Chin Lim Tak. Right? Chin Lim Tak, I call him Tak. Chin Lim Tak, plus 10 others. So they were discussing what an item that was brought up was, what's the way forward? You know, we're all engineered, we all got title now. What's the way forward? How do we make this thing happen? Make this thing happen. Okay, next. Okay, same thing again. Collaboration with engineers of the host country. But I must share with you, Malaysia's Engineers Act amended in 2015 since 1974, I think. Now, Malaysia's Engineers Act fully liberalized. What I can share with you is, in our act, the law, we have removed the term foreign or temporary engineer. You know, with globalization, anyone can come into Malaysia now and register as a engineer in Malaysia. But of course, the steps are there. Today, if you a Bangladeshi, so many Bangladeshis working, you know, in Malaysia in various service sectors. If he's qualified from the recognized university in Bangladesh, because Bangladesh has signed up with the Washington Accord, when they get full approval, he can walk into the Board of Engineers Malaysia, submit his credentials, and the Board of Engineers will register him as a graduate engineer first. Graduate engineer, as a graduate engineer. Anyone of you guys are welcome, or Bruneians, with the provision that your basic degree is recognized by the Malaysian Board of Engineers. And usually it's ranked against the Washington Accord, which we shall see later. But after being, just to share with you, because we also open up, but we also close a bit. Just to share with you, we are open up because, you know, we want to show the world we open up, but at the same time, engineers very protective. No, nanti cannot cari makan. We already got a lot of big department store coming in, big, all the foreigners all swallowing up all the, you know, local trade. So we're concerned about that. So the catch is, after you register as a graduate engineer, if you've got experience, you know, and you already registered a foreign body, recognized body, or reputable organization, you can apply to be a professional engineer, PE. We call it PE. And before 2015, before the fourth amendment, the PE can practice tomorrow. But 2015, because of this liberalization, anyone can come and register as PE. We introduced the second tier. Started in June last year. We call the practicing certificate. You have to sit for another examination. Very difficult examination. First time we conducted in November. Out of 104 candidates, only 4 passed. Very tough. Very tough. So you make it really tough. If locals can do it, we expect the foreigners can do it. Because a lot of questions on local law, stuff like that. That's more or less to, make it a bit difficult. And there's also a provisor. Once you've got your certificate, if you're a foreigner, you have to be serious about it. You have to show evidence that you've been in the country for six months in the year. Just to make sure that you just go and get a certificate and then you don't do anything. So apart from paying money every year, you also have, when you want to renew as a foreigner, you also have to show your residence that you've been residing in Malaysia. Okay, next. Sorry, share a bit. So these are the original board. In Brunei, it was the Ministry of Development. I guess by now it's been amended or not. It probably been amended to something else. For example, Cambodia, they've got their, since 2005, they've got the Cambodian Board of Engineers Cambodia. Laos a bit in limbo now. A bit in limbo. The thing about Laos and Cambodia is, unlike us, we have like you have Puja and we have the government regulatory authority. Cambodia has merged the two. Now. We're a bit concerned because there's no NGO in that sense. It's all government headed. They're all government headed. And Laos has adopted that too, but Laos currently is not reporting very well to our ASEAN grouping. They've got internal issues. They've been missing. In fact, they were due to co-host the ASEAN Federation Convention end of this year. They were missing in action, and Thailand has volunteered to take up the convention. So in Bangkok this year. At Bangkok this year. I think that Datuk Nazri will be there. And the rest. So these are the professional regulatory body. Philippines, later I'll bring up Philippines. Why we should model ourselves with, or rather why the ASEAN engineer should model according to the Philippines organization. Okay, next. 1 minute. Got to finish by 9:30. Okay. Move backwards balik. That was 2005 MRA. Our government signed the MRA, so we have to work with the government. Okay, we have to respect. We have to get ourselves registered on the ACPE because that's the law. That's the law within each country. Now, this is the engineer, the NGOs. Now, we had AFIO back in 1982. In fact, before 1982, it was Malaysia and Singapore because we were Malaysia before. When Singapore pulled out, the engineers were still working every year. We have a summit or get together to discuss about engineering things. And then Thailand, Indonesia joined in along the way. Finally, 1982, we had the full range of ASEAN countries and formalized through the every year we had a conference formalized through the ASEAN Federation of Engineering Organization, AFIO. Haji Mansir, that time, were you in there already or was that? I think you were there already, I think, Brunei. I'm sorry, but like I said, I was not there, but when I talked to some, especially in Malaysia, a few guys were saying, oh, I was the one who helped to draft the agreement, blah, blah, so they have very good first-hand experience. I'm just sharing what's recorded actually. Okay. So it's rotated among the AFIO members. I think it's logistics. This explains why the ASEAN Engineer Register is kept in Kuala Lumpur. Even the treasurer is also formerly from Institution of Engineers Malaysia. And I can understand how much cost it's got to go. And the ASEAN Engineers Register doesn't have all that funds actually to maintain. So we try to meet every 6 months. We meet face to face. And then in the midterm, which is coming in Singapore, and then at the end of the year. Okay, next. Okay, so here we are. Nice picture. You can see it on the website. Okay, next. As usual, why did we form that? All the good points. Of course, recognition of ASEAN engineers. This is the one that I'm supposed to work on very strongly. And these are the challenges which we share later. And the rest, and high standards of practice. Now, this started with working groups within the AFIO. At every midterm or every end of the year, there's a working group on environment, electrical, education, mobility, and so forth. I can share with you that the electrical guys have moved something. I think 6 months ago, they managed to agree on standards for testing and commissioning within the ASEAN region. We had a small presentation in Kuala Lumpur, but Myanmar was there. I can't recall Brunei was there. They actually launched it, and like you said, this is only at the what we call learned society, at the engineers level. So of course we got to go to the government now to adopt it. And we have no choice. We have to go through the ACPE. So you find that we have to work together. The ACPE and the AER. The ACPE just a list, keeping your name there. The AER, we are the working groups. We are the one who meets and who are interested in developing engineering standards. You know, on the ground kind of thing, physically. Next, and the rest, yeah. Unfortunately, this is the ASEAN engineers. Not unfortunately, fortunately, we've got altogether 3,000. This is the ASEAN engineers, AER. You will see that we also record technicians and technologists after this. Live members, Brunei 47, still alive. Live members and non-live members. So Philippines was heading. I purposely summarized this up because okay, maybe I can share some story about Philippines later. So you can see that Myanmar, actually this is the latest February, Myanmar is going to overtake Malaysia very soon, because Myanmar are very active in getting their engineers to improve their capacity and to upgrade themselves. So this is ASEAN Engineers Register, or ASEAN Engineering Federation. It's one channel where they are really focusing on, okay? And Laos, Laos missing in action now. After Thailand, Singapore, they've been quite stagnant now. But okay, we'll look next. So you can see why I want to share with you. I was specially invited to go to the award ceremony. You know, in Philippines, it's a big thing to get an ASEAN engineer. It's bigger than their own professional registration. Why? Because the Philippines ASEAN PTC, rather Philippines Technological Council, which is the member representing Philippines in AFIO, they have managed to get their government, their professional regulatory authority, to recognize ASEAN engineer as the same par for registration as an ACPE. Automatic. Your ASEAN engineer, the same requirements in it, 7 years and 2 years in service, recognized degree, the same requirements, same with ACPE. In Malaysia, I applied through ASEAN engineer, I applied the same thing to ACPE. The only problem is I got to translate into Bahasa Malaysia. And the columns are different, so I got to do a bit of extra work there, but it's the same projects, the same description. So, Philippines has been good in that, and they're very proud. They're Philippines engineer. You know why I show this picture? You see, even the guy flew all the way from Qatar. They've got their division in Qatar, so many Philippines working over there. And, you know, he flew in just to accept his ASEAN engineers, what you call acceptance. He flew in. And the whole family is involved. They bring their children and everything up on stage. You know, it's a big thing in the Philippines. And they brought in 150 over ASEAN engineers at that session, you know, within the year. And they've been doing that. They've also got thousands. And because of the formula of ranking, the engineers managed to rank the ASEAN engineers together with the ACPE. Malaysia, we failed. I must share with you, Malaysia, we failed. Internal things, some reason, historically. We couldn't get 1,000 engineers. When we go associate, these are the lists I showed today. These are associate ASEAN engineers. If you graduate today, you can be an associate because you haven't got enough experience. You know, so you can register early, you can participate in activities and whatnot. So that's the ASEAN associate engineers, and of course the rest, these are being moved. These are quite new. So international thinking among engineering or engineering services is inclusive of technologists and technicians. We shall see again. Okay, next. ASEAN Engineers Register. You got a member, you can log in. Then you can put yourself on the database. It's open only to ASEAN engineers. So to be on this database, you have to apply for your AER through your host regulatory authority, or rather, sorry, the host AFIO member. And these are the guys in Brunei. Unfortunately, they didn't put their specialization. Haji Mazin could have put dams, you know, major dams up there. And then if Myanmar decides to get his advice, they can Google Brunei dams and his name will appear. Anyone can access this register, but only the person can update his details. When you click, you get your details. You can tell all sorts of stories about yourself, what you're good at, engineer, and another, and someone else can just what do you call, link up with you if they need to use your services. And this is one of our main thrusts of this AER. We want this networking. We want this database to be available. We want ASEAN engineers to look at ASEAN engineers first. ASEAN engineers. See, it's quite sad sometimes. You know, we think that we're not so good. Unfortunately, I must share with you a concern that was also expressed at the recent ACPE was China One Belt One Road. China One Belt One Road. Brunei may be affected, but Thailand is already reacting to this because I know in Malaysia, the second crossing, Chinese engineers were coming because this China, when they come with their investment, they will bring their engineers. So the issue was the Thailand engineers are requesting that those Chinese engineers be registered to practice under Thailand law. Malaysia has been quiet about this, you know, kita takut sikit lah because the PRA is government run. This is the issue, of course, then, and IEM don't want to be in confrontation, so Malaysia boleh, I mean, but we are aware of this. We are aware of this. We want to safeguard our interests. You know, I mean, we've got so many engineers, but you know, when China came, the whole world, even the cooks, they bring the cooks along. Yeah. And then, macam dia kah? Ada China ada sini ya? Oh yeah, the second bridge, the Tutong Bridge is China kan? No, not Tutong, the Murong. The Murong, yeah. And then I don't know whether in Brunei or not, but in also in one of the Arab countries, I think not Arab, Somalia or something like that. The best Chinese restaurant is in the Chinese camp. And then it's not open to the public, only open for those in the camp. So you're lucky you get invited, you know, by a guy, and you can enjoy the nice Chinese food there. Okay. So to be on this register is the first good step towards promotion of why you have to be an ASEAN engineer. Apart from in the Philippines, Philippines are doing very well. Okay, next. Oh, now okay. Tak ada apa ini, just to tell me that now the tuning become different. Next. Have a break, yeah. So far, maybe any questions? Any burning questions? Maybe it will be answered later. Nah, we see how. Okay, we keep on going. These are just background stories. You know, the World Trade Organization. Okay, next. Just after the Second World War, when UN was formed, of course, the whole world managed to sit together. Normally under UN, what do you call? Events or promotion by UN, you know, we are managing under UNESCO, all sorts of organizations, World Health Organization, they're all sitting down. And it was formally created in 1994, 121 nations, and it was called Tariffs and Trade because in those days it was just goods, moving of goods, no more tax, no more barriers. And then people realized that 60% of global production or rather movement, economic movement production, 60% is on services. Only 20%, what we call 60% on services. So it's a big proportion. It's a big proportion. So since, I think I've jumped the gun a bit here. Let me see. 1948, after the Second World War, was the GATT, which was actually goods, basically on goods, several. And then in 1994 only they start to recognize services, blah, 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 services. You see, engineer not so good in all these political movements. Anyway, services, and together with it came intellectual property. So if you subscribe, I think Brunei subscribed to the GATT, so we have to respect and work through this general agreements. Okay, next. Sorry. This is the same one, the 4 modes earlier. We discussed this, okay? This is the 4 modes of movement, you know, the 4 modes of the way the GATS talk about it, and the way our MRA also adopt. We always adopt the UN definitions. Okay, next. Okay, next, in the same thing. Okay, so with the GATS and the UN meeting, UNESCO in particular, since 1948 or 1968, a group of engineers actually met at the sideline of the UNESCO conference. 90 nations representing 20 million engineers decide that they should form a non-governmental organization representing engineering profession worldwide. Now this is the voice of engineers to the UN. The voice of engineers. UN wants to seek experts in any of these divisions which we tend to follow: environment, you know, climate change, whether this is the association or the organization that they go through, and this is the advisory body on UN matters or engineering related matters. Yeah, issues related to engineering are addressed. Mobility of professional engineers is part of WAFIO's mission, but it's not in accreditation or competent assessment. So you see the word again, accreditation. Basically it means your degree, education. Competent assessment means your professional status. Why WAFIO did not do this? Too many differences we can see. These are the challenges of trying to get recognition. Okay, next. 10 more minutes, I better fast. You can see only Singapore, Malaysia, Philippines, so Brunei belum, Bangladesh are members of WAFIO. Next, lagi. These are all the website actually. But Brunei, luckily, because WAFIO recognizes international members through associations, through WAFIO, Brunei can actually be represented in WAFIO or the FIO coming out next. Okay. Oh. And they organize a lot of forums. You can join as through WAFIO. You can actually be represented there. You can join in their annual conference if you want to be a great engineer. I mean, other engineers internationally, you're welcome there through the WAFIO. Next, and this led, because of the WAFIO, this led again to another sideline information, which is actually one of the earlier agreements on tertiary qualifications, what we call accreditation nowadays. And quite interesting because these were all former, the same people here. Originally, the original 6, because they were all England based or English based, and then later on expanded, both engineers in Malaysia and only Singapore. So only 2 ASEAN countries in the agreement to recognize basic engineering degrees. These are issues that will come up in ASEAN. Okay, next. And Philippines, I think Philippines has just been approved, I think, as a member. And Bangladesh, as I said, Bangladesh soon they'll be recognized and they'll be Washington Accord signatory. Okay, next. Great, right. Okay, same story. This will be available on your slides. You can look later. I'm just in time now. Okay, I'll come to what interesting. This is another accord as a follow-up to Washington, because the whole world started with the Europeans started recognizing engineering services under the UN. There's a code down there, which not only meant professional engineering services by professional engineers, but also the technologies and the technicians. So we have an accord. These countries have signed up to recognize engineering technology programs. These are all degree, graduation, not yet professionalism, graduates, okay? Okay. And then this is for technicians. They're all part of the engineering team, engineers and technologists and engineers. You know, we have Cloud Works, they're technicians. We have them. Okay. These are, you can, like I said, nowadays the website. The next, doubly. Now, why they are technicians? Because engineering is science-based, so technologies are more applying service technology. So there's roles, roles required. Engineer, technologists, and engineering technicians. So they have to work together. Okay. Okay. Next is our lagi. Okay. Now, as an engineer, when you first graduate, you want to make sure that this is your path there. This is what you want. This is what you want to do. You make sure that first your degree is okay. Standards for engineering education. Next, you want to make sure that you have your professional competency approved in your local organization, and subsequently international recognition on competency. So accreditation, competency, PE lah, PE. Now we have so many levels here, and after that you got to keep on going CPD and stuff like that to make yourself active in the engineering field. Okay, next. Okay, okay, tak apa, this one you can see later. Why engineers want to be recognized professionally? Basically, public safety involved by legislation in the country, so you want to go to that country. So because of that, some countries, they make it exclusive, where title engineer is protected and so on, so that when you want to work in that country, immigration, it's easy to recognize another degree. So internationally, they were working towards what you call accreditation and professional country study. And then in Europe, they have another one. These are the two major ones, because Europe has got a very different kind of system. They've got polytechnics, they've got 3 years, and we can see like that. And of course, mobility are just international groupings. Currently, we have the International Engineering Alliance. You can look up that in detail, which is leading the movement or organization that's registering what we call international PE, the equipment PE, and they have a lot of countries, and you know they're more or less is the leading organization now. They meet regularly every year to try and move forward this mobility of engineers in the world. And of course, European have their own FIANI, and there are also other small organizations, Americas lah. There is one which Malaysia is acting, FIAP, offshoot of ASEAN actually, and FIAP always meets together with ASEAN every year, because it was actually formed during one of the ASEAN conferences in Thailand, and the rest. Okay, on lagi banyak ni, cepat. So okay, so we got what we call, this one is called now the engineers mobility, is now called international PE, 9 years experience and training, and then you put on the international PE register. About 10,000 now, international, 10,000 members on the PE. It's actually to facilitate. At the moment, we use the word facilitate. These are the challenges, facilitate. If you want to go to, I'm international PE, I want to register in Australia, and also then there is some recognition to facilitate. They look at me and they give me an easier pathway. For example, basic degree could be recognized. So it becomes a facilitation at the moment, not immediate recognition. We haven't gone that border yet. And APEC countries have also got the term APEC engineer. I also registered as APEC engineer last year. Since becoming head commissioner, I better register in all these international things, so I'm qualified. APEC engineer. Almost the same requirement, 7 years, 9 years. I think 7 years actually because Japan was the one. I think New Zealand, they only said 3 years, and now they're looking at what they call targets or goals. What's the term they use? I mean, irrespective of how many years, as long as you have the experience. But Japan is quite conservative. They have 7. In order to work with them, they have adopted 7 years as the benchmark. Okay, next. Okay, you can see why FIANI has got a different kind of thing. You can look in detail later. It's quite difficult to just together now. Okay, okay. Mobility. This is the one to show again. This is basically historical Engineers Mobility Forum, EMF. Now on the IEA with this nice picture. Look on, fast. Couple later I can explain this. It's all in the notes. You can look at it later. So these are the signatories. Again, we see this issue for ASEAN. Malaysia and Singapore are signatories of under the IPE. You know why IPE similar to Washington Accord? Because it's the Washington Accord countries that led to the IPE when they meet. Remember, Washington Accord was for degree. Then they formed the IPE for competency, for professional engineers. So that's why a lot of common people in there. So next. Then there's APEC engineer, because our government signed APEC agreement. So there is another recognition among APEC countries to allow for, again, the word used is facilitate. Facilitate mobility of engineers within the APEC economies. The same requirements. Again, Japan is signatory, 7 years was put in there. Same requirement. If you look at it, you know, they are common requirements. Okay, okay. APEC, okay. Brunei, I remember. APEC countries. So And a lot of a few more ASEAN countries, Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so not bad, out of 21 countries. So we can actually work in another APEC country, okay? Provided we satisfy the immigration laws or some of the challenges. Okay, next, apa? Next. So you can see this is a representative figure, well done. No, back, I just want to show the one, just a quick one, this one. So you can see here, WA. These are the countries in WA, right? We got this, except Indonesia and Thailand. Brunei not mentioned here, because Brunei is not member of International Engineering Alliance yet. Okay. And then when we look at what they call the IPEA, Professional Engineering Register, we've got these countries. And finally, when we look at the common one, these are the countries that are common. So of all these guys in the Engineering Alliance, there's already this disparity, there's challenge, difficulty to gel together, to agree on a common thing. But we're working there. We're working there. And of course, Laos and Vietnam, they're called, they pay a bit less because they're developing. Okay, next lagi. So this is the one of the challenge. Okay, lagi. Okay, this is basically how it was formed. The 3 accords. This was signed under the International Engineering Alliance grouping. So degree, and these are the professional competency. Okay, lagi. You see the 3 terms again, engineer. Okay, next. Moving fast. Now this is the FIAP. Now FIAP was formed in '78 during a meeting in Thailand, and because it was formed during part of the AFIO conference, this is quite a body on its own, but it's being recognized by UNESCO, strongly supported by UNESCO through grants, strongly led by IEM Malaysia. Last week they were in Pakistan for this FIAP international conference. They went to help to provide training in Nigeria, Tajikistan, how to set up the engineering boards and engineering organizations there to facilitate, these two, accreditation and competency finally, because they don't have an organization. Okay, next. Okay, lagi. I think I will, final conclusion. So, in Brunei, I did a bit of research. So in Brunei, we have research. As AER becomes more relevant in coming years in ASEAN, adopt the AER. The ASEAN Secretariat is considering to adopt the ASEAN membership as the benchmark for the MRA. Remember earlier? Between ASEAN engineering qualifications of competent DED, this is from Brunei, engineering division calls its members to apply for membership. I think Dato' Nazri quoted this in the paper. So it's good, Brunei. It's good. So we want to see more of you coming in, and we want to see you, the PRA adopting ASEAN AER membership as the benchmark. Macam Philippines, you can when we meet in the midterm, we can discuss the Philippines again. I think I'll try to bring up this issue and share with the others. So okay, we have regulations and the law, and also another one. When Brunei had the AFIO thing here, AFIO Brunei to develop world-class engineers. I mean, you want to export your engineering services, so you got to have your international recognition. Maybe perhaps IEA. You can try and look forward to joining the IEA host through Washington Accord. Okay, lagi. And okay, I recognize this was the term I could not pronounce just now. Board of Architects Professional PAPEX. Susah. Banyak akronim sekarang. So okay, so you've got your professional practice. Well, the PRA is well in line. Okay, lagi. And you've got basically you've got your criterion that spell out. I extracted this from documentation. So at the moment you are taking examples from OIC and maybe ASEAN countries. And competency, you're looking at external professional bodies to be able to rank your professional competency standards of Brunei engineers. Okay, lagi. And Brunei is good. Don't worry, last 2-3 slides. Brunei is good. Where is it? Alah, pen pun habis tu. Brunei is good. You can see Brunei. Mana Brunei? This is doing business under World Bank. Doing business. Procedure mana Brunei? 37. Brunei Darussalam. You're ranked 37 in dealing with construction permits. Malaysia ada productivity center improve. Dulu very far behind. But Number of procedures, you got 18 procedures, and so on. So not bad, you're on rank number 37. These are the costs of getting permits, about 2%, 1.9%. 1.9% of a typical cost of a warehouse. And you require 75 days. This is World Bank information. You can challenge them. Okay, lagi. And that's how they do the permit, they rank it. Okay, lagi. So these are challenges ASEAN engineers. One of the biggest challenge, external challenge, destination countries don't put merit for ASEAN engineer. Unfortunately, Singapore, Malaysia, we are working towards it. Even Thailand also wants to work on it. I was speaking to the board engineers Thailand the other day. They said no, they're actually looking at it and they want to work together. And the other constitutional provisions, of course, immigration laws, requirements, and local language proficiency. If I want to submit in Brunei, no problem, I can write in Bahasa Melayu, but when I submitted my Cambodia plans in Cambodia, I couldn't submit. But it's easy to just arrange a local fellow to do it for you, pay him, and then he submits everything. And it's got to be written in Cambodian. I think similarly Vietnam, stuff like that. So those are issues in language. And internally, no clear career path in using AER. People think, why do I join AER? I want to get more, like what I've been explaining here. We have to work towards that. And of course, language, even though we are the same, Serumpun, language barrier. Vietnamese, Cambodian, Laotian, Myanmar lagi. Oh, Myanmar. Okay, thank you. Next, with that, I think habis. Okay, thank you. Just time up.
Thank you very much to Engineer Elias for that informative presentation. I think we're a bit over the time, but maybe we can open the floor up to a couple of questions before we move on to the next agenda. Anybody has any question they would like to raise? Okay. There's a wireless.
Which one of them free trade means you shall not provide any restriction to foreigners to come in to practice in your host country. Similarly, on the other side, they have to do that. So Malaysia took the lead under engineering services, which was signed the MRA back in 2005 and 1998, long before that, took the lead, and over a few years, liberalized. I mean, in our act, we don't mention foreigners anymore. So anyone's the same. They are borderless, as far as engineering service got border, anyone can come in. So of course, the engineers profession, fraternity, this is too open, like I mentioned earlier. So that's why we introduced the second tier. Professional engineer status, good. You are a professional engineer, but you cannot cari makan, you cannot provide services, you cannot charge money, you cannot do a business. You can give free advice. You can be employed in a manufacturer, and as a professional engineer, you actually design the product. You can put your professional engineer job there. It's been viewed and done professionally by a professional engineer, because it's my company and I'm not an external person. I cannot charge. I can only do the work as a professional engineer. Satisfies the engineers doing engineering product engineering services. Now, to charge services fees to do a business, you have to get a license. I think US has got that. Yeah, sir. Boleh jawab tu.
So, meaning that in order to get a license, or in order to get a certificate, you have to sit and pass your profession.
Yep. Yes. Before that, the professional engineer requirements remain the same like before. Kan macam sama, I think like most of us adopted that idea. The minimum 3 years or 4 years working experience, and then you have to tabulate your design experience, your supervision or site experience, and then I think Brunei did the same thing. Peer review. In Malaysia, we appoint 2 professional engineers with over 10 years experience to sit and peer review what you submitted and test your knowledge, Q&A, short essay questions, and then recommend for admission as a professional engineer.
So this new law is applicable for those people one lah.
2015. So I must share with you. Before they introduced that, this took some time. I think almost 8 years of study. So about 2 years before 2015, we did a test. 42 practicing engineers, 8 from government, so many from private sector, like me, for example. Special session over 2 days, because this PC is conducted over 2 days. There's objective question and there's essay question. So and then the first day is about law and regulation, which is the so-called difficult if you're not practicing. You know, out of these 42, only 2 mechanical engineers passing rate. So they doubt, if you introduce the law tomorrow, there'll be no practicing certificate. So the government gave retroactive recognition. People like me don't have to sit. I just submit quickly within the moratorium year 1 year, then I get a free certificate. Tak boleh pass sampai bila-bila kan? Like that. So that was action taken. Now that moratorium period is over. So they conducted the first exam, and at that few days before that, like we said, only 4 out of 100 or 6 out of 104. Very low passing rate. So people were bising lah, lower the standards lah, this and that, so these are issues being taken up now. They have to consider. You lower standards, then people say tak ada standard, Kan? Tak ada standard pula. You already set the standards. But the questions are very tough. One thing that's not fair, if you ever consider the examination is, one thing not fair is because in Malaysia, when you get a civil job, for example, a civil engineer, you can endorse on all projects, highway, water, because civil engineering is so broad. But if, so when the exam PCE comes out, they will test you everything from water, highway, the big questions. Your only compensation is passing mark is 50%. You only need to answer 50%. But still the questions have to be answered, all of them. You got to get 50% mark. And you could be practicing 20 years like 100% in water. And then you get, what's the bending moment for a simply supported beam? But they are open book. Open book. You can take a profile book and answer it. Is that okay? Right? Your answer? Ada lagi?
I think just sharing, as far as the Board of Architect, Professional Engineers and QS in Brunei, I think we have a good provision provided for. We have two provisions in our order. One is that you can be registered as maybe engineer or architects or QS, but we also have a provision whereby that a practicing certificate need to be obtained in order for you to become a professional engineer. But how to obtain the professional certificate, maybe that have to be relied to what we have done so far lah.
All the young engineers are okay, but if you do that, the old engineers will, I think, from our experience, they'll be stuck with that lah. I thought Kesro is good on this one. Leading this group. I think Haji knows Dato' Kesro, the smart tunnel, past president and so on in Malaysia. But like I said, the licensing, if there's an exam, that stuff is, if it's just a matter of before 2015, I'm a consultant engineer and PE. There's also a inverted comma licensing. It's just a matter of declaring to the board that I want to practice. Again, but the requirements have not changed on foreign engineer or this, but there was a kind of to register that I want to practice as perunding ikatan. So just nominate to the board so that the board keep a register of organization and persons who's practicing. Actually, practicing means charging fees. That's what it means as the law in Malaysia then, charging fees. So to carry forward, now you need a practicing certificate after getting your professional engineer. Okay, sir.
Okay. One more question?
Is that a question or?
Mr. Yan, a question from you? No? Okay. So I think with that we'll end this question and answer session. We'll have another session anyway at the end of this morning session. So if you have any further question you would like to raise, you can raise it then. Okay. So for some information for